Welcome back. What if one of the most overlooked Roosevelt dimes has been quietly hiding an incredible story in plain sight? Today, we're taking a closer look at the subtle details, history, and collector secrets that reveal why a few authenticated examples stand out from millions of ordinary coins. First coin. The 1966 Roosevelt dime is one of those American coins that countless people have handled without giving it a second thought, yet it quietly represents one of the most fascinating chapters in modern United States coinage. At first glance, it appears almost identical to millions of other Roosevelt dimes struck during the 1960s, but a closer inspection reveals details that immediately separate it from earlier issues and place it at the center of one of the greatest transitions in American monetary history. Hidden within its design, composition, and production are clues that tell the story of a nation responding to rising silver prices, changing economic realities, and an unprecedented coin shortage. Even more intriguing, authenticated examples of this seemingly ordinary coin have achieved remarkable results in the collector market under the right circumstances. As this story unfolds, you'll discover what factors determine whether a 1966 Roosevelt dime remains worth only face value or becomes a highly desirable collectible, along with the verified auction performances of exceptional examples that have captured the attention of serious numismatists. By 1966, the United States was experiencing dramatic economic changes that directly affected everyday pocket change. Throughout the early 1960s, the intrinsic value of silver had continued climbing, encouraging people to remove older silver coins from circulation and store them away. Congress responded with the Coinage Act of 1965, one of the most significant monetary reforms in American history. The legislation eliminated silver from circulating dimes and quarters while reducing the silver content of half dollars. The 1966 Roosevelt dime, therefore, became part of only the second full year of America's new copper-nickel clad coinage. Unlike previous dimes that contained 90% silver, the new version consisted of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core. Despite this major metallurgical change, the coin retained the familiar specifications of 17.91 millimeters in diameter, a weight of approximately 2.27 grams, and a reeded edge designed to discourage clipping and maintain consistency with earlier issues. To the average American, the coin looked almost unchanged, yet its internal structure marked the beginning of an entirely new era in circulating coinage. One of the most interesting features of every genuine 1966 Roosevelt dime is actually something that is missing rather than something that appears on the coin. During the severe coin shortage of the mid-1960s, the United States Mint deliberately removed mint marks from circulating coins dated 1965 through 1967. Officials believed collectors were pulling newly released coins from circulation in search of different mint mark varieties, worsening the shortage. As a result, every normal 1966 Roosevelt dime was produced without a mint mark, regardless of whether it was struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. This unusual policy lasted only 3 years before mint marks returned in 1968. Because of this temporary suspension, collectors often become confused when examining a 1966 dime, mistakenly believing a missing mint mark represents an error. In reality, the absence of a mint mark is exactly what authentic examples should display. The combined production exceeded 1 billion pieces, making the 1966 Roosevelt dime one of the most heavily produced dimes of its era. Yet surviving examples with exceptional strike quality, flawless surfaces, and outstanding eye appeal remain surprisingly elusive because most entered circulation immediately and experienced decades of wear. The artistic elements of the coin continued the design introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt shortly after his death. Sculptor and engraver John R. Sinek created both the obverse and reverse, producing a design that remains one of the most recognizable in American numismatics. The obverse features Roosevelt facing left, accompanied by the inscriptions Liberty, in God we trust, and the date 1966. The reverse displays a central torch symbolizing liberty, flanked by an olive branch representing peace and an oak branch representing strength, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, 1 dime, and EPLUBUSUNUM. Although billions were struck, not every 1966 dime exhibits identical detail. Differences in die condition, striking pressure, and planchet preparation created noticeable variations. Coins struck from fresh dies often display crisp hair detail, sharply defined torch bands, and strong branch separation, while later die states may appear softer. Collectors seeking premium examples carefully evaluate these subtle characteristics because superior strikes frequently command significantly greater demand in certified mint state grades. For collectors, condition quickly becomes the defining factor that separates ordinary examples from truly valuable pieces. Professional grading services examine every surface under magnification, evaluating luster, contact marks, strike quality, and overall preservation before assigning a numerical grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 through 70. Most surviving 1966 dimes fall into circulated grades or lower mint state levels, where collector premiums remain modest. However, sharply struck coins with blazing original mint luster and virtually flawless surfaces become increasingly scarce in the highest certified grades. A certified mint state 67 example with exceptional eye appeal may trade around $1,250 depending on current demand, while finer specimens approaching the top of the grading scale have realized approximately $2,700 at major auctions when supported by strong certification and attractive visual quality. These values reflect authenticated coins evaluated by respected grading companies, not ordinary circulated pieces, emphasizing that preservation and third-party certification remain essential components in determining market value. Although regular high-grade examples attract considerable interest, the most exciting discoveries involve genuine mint errors and recognized die varieties. Because the United States Mint was producing enormous quantities of coins during this period, occasional manufacturing mistakes inevitably escaped into circulation. Collectors actively search for off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, wrong planchet errors, dramatic die cracks, and significant double die characteristics confirmed by specialists. Not every doubling visible under magnification represents a valuable variety, since machine doubling is common and generally carries little premium. Authentication by experienced numismatic experts becomes especially important when evaluating potential error coins. Certified dramatic errors can attract competitive bidding far beyond the value of ordinary examples, with some authenticated pieces realizing well over $3,900, depending on the severity of the error, rarity, certification, and overall condition. Such results are reserved for legitimately documented mint mistakes rather than coins that have been damaged after leaving the mint, a distinction that every collector should understand before assuming a coin possesses unusual value. Authenticating a genuine 1966 Roosevelt dime involves more than simply confirming the date. Because counterfeiters increasingly target valuable modern coins, specialists evaluate weight, diameter, thickness, magnetic response, edge appearance, surface texture, and microscopic design details. An authentic clad dime should weigh close to 2.27 grams with only minimal tolerance for normal production variation. The edge should reveal the distinctive copper core sandwiched between the nickel-clad outer layers, a feature absent on pre-1965 silver dimes. Suspicious coloring, porous surfaces, casting bubbles, incorrect lettering, or unusually soft design details may indicate a counterfeit or altered piece. Preservation also plays a major role in long-term value. Experienced collectors avoid polishing or cleaning coins because even light cleaning can permanently reduce collector appeal and grading potential. Instead, valuable examples are typically stored in inert archival holders, mylar flips, acid-free cardboard holders, or professionally encapsulated slabs that protect them from moisture, fingerprints, environmental contaminants, and accidental abrasion while preserving their original surfaces for future generations. Today, the 1966 Roosevelt dime occupies a unique position within American coin collecting because it combines enormous historical significance with surprisingly challenging condition rarity. It represents the early years of America's transition away from circulating silver while reminding collectors how economic pressures reshaped everyday currency. Registry set competitors continue searching for finer certified examples, while specialists pursue unusual die varieties and spectacular mint errors that rarely appear on the market. Auction records consistently demonstrate that extraordinary prices belong only to authenticated coins possessing exceptional quality, recognized rarity, or verified minting anomalies, rather than every dime bearing the 1966 date. For most examples found in circulation or inherited collections, value depends on careful evaluation rather than assumption. A seemingly ordinary coin may simply represent an interesting piece of American history, while another preserved under ideal conditions for decades could become a desirable collectible sought by advanced numismatists. That uncertainty is precisely what continues to make the 1966 Roosevelt dime such a compelling subject, reminding collectors that every coin tells two stories at once: the history of the nation that produced it and the remarkable journey each individual specimen has taken ever since. Next coin. The 1970 Roosevelt dime is one of those coins that rarely attracts attention in everyday change, yet among experienced collectors, it occupies a surprisingly fascinating place in modern American numismatics. At first glance, it seems almost indistinguishable from countless other Roosevelt dimes struck during the late 20th century, but closer examination reveals that its story extends far beyond its modest appearance. It represents a period when the United States Mint had fully embraced clad coinage after the disappearance of circulating silver dimes, while millions of Americans unknowingly carried these new coins through a rapidly changing decade. Decades later, certain authenticated examples have become highly collectible because of their remarkable preservation, exceptional strike quality, and limited survival in elite grades. As this documentary unfolds, you'll discover why some 1970 Roosevelt dimes command extraordinary interest from collectors, what characteristics specialists examine before assigning value, and how authenticated examples have performed in the marketplace under the most demanding standards of professional grading. By 1970, the United States had largely recovered from the nationwide coin shortage that had dominated the middle years of the 1960s. The Coinage Act of 1965 had fundamentally transformed American currency by eliminating silver from circulating dimes and quarters, replacing the traditional 90% silver alloy with a copper core bonded between outer layers of copper-nickel. The 1970 Roosevelt dime continued that new standard, weighing approximately 2.27 grams, measuring 17.91 millimeters in diameter, and featuring its familiar reeded edge. Unlike the transitional years of 1965 through 1967, mint marks had returned to circulating coinage, allowing collectors to distinguish where individual coins were produced. Philadelphia struck dimes without a mint mark, while Denver issues carried a small D to the left of the torch on the reverse. Proof versions were produced at San Francisco and display the S mint mark. Combined circulation production reached well into the hundreds of millions, ensuring that the coin fulfilled its intended purpose as everyday money. Yet even enormous mintages cannot guarantee the survival of pristine examples after decades of circulation and handling. The artistic design remained unchanged from the series introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt shortly after his passing. Chief engraver John R. Sinek created both sides of the coin, producing one of the most enduring designs in modern American coinage. Roosevelt's left-facing portrait dominates the obverse, accompanied by the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1970. On the reverse, a central torch symbolizes liberty, while an olive branch represents peace, and an oak branch signifies strength and independence. Surrounding these elements are the inscriptions United States of America, EPLUBUSUNUM, and one dime. Although the design appears simple, experienced collectors study tiny details within Roosevelt's hair, the torch bands, leaf veins, and lettering because these features reveal how well the dies transferred their design to each planchet. Coins struck from fresh dies typically display noticeably sharper detail than those produced later in a die's working life, making strike quality an important consideration even before condition is evaluated. As millions of these dimes entered circulation during the early 1970s, they witnessed an America undergoing profound economic and social change. Inflation was beginning to accelerate, confidence in precious metal coinage had already faded, and the nation stood only a year away from President Richard Nixon's decision to suspend the dollar's convertibility into gold under the Bretton Woods system. The 1970 Roosevelt dime therefore circulated during one of the most significant monetary transitions in modern American history. Because these coins were intended strictly for commerce, few people set aside uncirculated rolls for future collectors. Bags of coins were transporting through banks, vending companies, and businesses where repeated contact produced countless small abrasions before many pieces ever reached the public. That constant movement explains why technically mint state examples are available, but coins displaying nearly flawless surfaces, vibrant original luster, and exceptional eye appeal become increasingly difficult to locate as grading standards become more demanding. Condition ultimately separates an ordinary 1970 Roosevelt dime from one that attracts serious collector competition. Professional grading organizations examine each coin under magnification, evaluating strike sharpness, preservation, luster, contact marks, originality, and overall visual appeal before assigning a numerical grade on the Sheldon scale. Most surviving examples occupy circulated grades or lower mint state levels, where premiums remain relatively modest despite the coin's historical significance. Once collectors reach the highest certified grades, however, the population declines dramatically. A certified mint state 68 example with strong eye appeal and original surfaces may sell for around $1,480 depending on certification, market demand, and recent auction activity. Even finer pieces approaching the top of the grading scale have realized approximately $3,350 in verified sales when their preservation, strike, and originality met the expectations of advanced registry set collectors. These prices apply only to authenticated high-grade specimens rather than ordinary coins found in circulation, reinforcing the importance of professional grading before assuming significant value. Beyond condition, collectors remain especially interested in legitimate mint errors and recognized die varieties, because these represent unusual events during production rather than ordinary circulation wear. Documented errors associated with the Roosevelt dime series include off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, strike-through errors, and occasional wrong planchet pieces, although each must be authenticated individually. Minor machine doubling is relatively common and generally does not carry the same significance as a true double die variety, which requires careful attribution by specialists. Because online misinformation often exaggerates the rarity of modern coins, experienced numismatists rely on established references and respected grading services before recognizing any unusual feature as valuable. Authenticated dramatic mint errors from the 1970 Roosevelt dime series have generated strong collector interest, and exceptional certified examples may exceed $3,900 when rarity, eye appeal, and documentation combine to create intense competition. Such results belong only to genuine mint-made errors and should never be confused with damage occurring after the coin entered circulation. Authentication has become increasingly important as modern counterfeit technology continues to improve. Specialists verify the weight, diameter, edge construction, metallic appearance, and microscopic design details before confirming authenticity. Genuine circulation strike 1970 dimes should display the distinctive copper core visible along the reeded edge, sandwiched between copper-nickel outer layers. Soft lettering, porous surfaces, incorrect color, casting bubbles, or unusual dimensions may indicate a counterfeit or altered piece. Cleaning also remains one of the most common reasons otherwise attractive coins lose collector value. Harsh polishing removes original mint luster and leaves hairline scratches that professional graders identify immediately. Instead of attempting restoration, knowledgeable collectors preserve important coins in inert holders, archival flips, acid-free storage materials, or certified tamper-evident slabs that protect against fingerprints, humidity, airborne contaminants, and unnecessary handling. Proper long-term storage preserves originality, which continues to be one of the most desirable qualities in today's marketplace. The enduring appeal of the 1970 Roosevelt dime lies not in extraordinary rarity, but in the challenge of locating examples that combine exceptional preservation, outstanding strike quality, authentic originality, and verified certification. It stands as a tangible reminder of America's transition into the clad coinage era and reflects the economic realities of a nation adapting to profound monetary change. Registry set collectors continue competing for the finest certified examples because even among hundreds of millions produced, only a very small number survive at the highest levels of preservation. Auction history consistently demonstrates that remarkable prices belong exclusively to authenticated high-grade coins or legitimate mint-era pieces whose rarity has been confirmed by respected experts. Every 1970 Roosevelt dime deserves careful examination before conclusions are drawn, yet collectors should remember that value is determined by a combination of authenticity, condition, grading, eye appeal, rarity, and current demand rather than by the date alone. That balance between historical significance and selective scarcity continues to make the 1970 Roosevelt dime an enduring subject of study for both seasoned numismatists and those just beginning to appreciate the remarkable stories hidden within America's everyday coinage. Next up, at first glance, the 1981 Roosevelt dime seems almost too ordinary to deserve a second look. Millions of Americans spent these coins on everyday purchases without imagining that collectors decades later would examine the same date under magnification, searching for tiny details invisible to the casual observer. That is exactly where the investigation begins. Instead of asking whether every 1981 dime is valuable, experienced numismatists ask a completely different question. What separates an average survivor from the handful of examples that become highly desirable? The answer is never found in a single feature. It comes from a careful combination of originality, preservation, strike quality, rarity within certified populations, and occasionally an authentic mint era. As we continue examining this seemingly common coin, you'll discover why certain authenticated examples have drawn remarkable attention in the collector market, and how specialists determine whether a particular specimen deserves closer study. The story starts in an America entering the early 1980s, a period marked by stubborn inflation, high interest rates, and significant economic adjustment. Everyday commerce depended heavily on small-denomination coins, and the Roosevelt dime remained one of the busiest workhorses of the nation's monetary system. By 1981, the transition away from silver coinage was long complete, and every circulation-strike Roosevelt dime was produced using a clad composition consisting of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. Each coin weighed approximately 2.27 grams, measured 17.91 millimeters in diameter, and featured its familiar reeded edge. Circulation dimes were struck at Philadelphia, which used no mint mark, and Denver, which placed a small D mint mark on the obverse above the date. Proof versions carrying the S mint mark were produced exclusively at the San Francisco Mint for collector sets. Combined production reached hundreds of millions of circulation coins, ensuring that nearly every American encountered them regularly, yet heavy production never guaranteed that flawless examples would survive decades of use. Holding the coin under proper lighting reveals why collectors spend so much time studying what appears to be a familiar design. John R. Sinek's portrait of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt dominates the obverse, preserving a tribute first introduced in 1946 following Roosevelt's leadership during the Great Depression and World War II, as well as his support of the March of Dimes campaign against polio. Every element deserves careful observation. Specialists first inspect the sharpness of Roosevelt's hair, the contours of his cheek and jawline, the crispness of the lettering "In Liberty" and "In God We Trust," and the appearance of the date and mint mark. Turning the coin over, attention shifts to the central torch symbolizing liberty, flanked by an olive branch representing peace and an oak branch standing for strength and stability. Tiny differences in strike pressure and die wear can soften these details, making one mint state coin noticeably more desirable than another despite sharing the same date and mint mark. The manufacturing process itself explains many of the characteristics collectors search for today. Blank planchets were punched from long strips of clad metal before passing through upsetting mills that formed their rims. The prepared blanks then entered high-speed coining presses where hardened dies impressed the design under tremendous pressure. Fresh dies produced bold lettering, sharply defined torch bands, and vibrant mint luster radiating across the surfaces, while worn dies gradually lost fine detail after striking enormous numbers of coins. During transportation, storage, and distribution, newly minted dimes collided with one another inside large canvas bags, creating the small contact marks commonly called bag marks. These marks explain why technically uncirculated coins may still show numerous surface imperfections. Experienced graders understand the difference between mint-made contact marks, post-mint damage, and natural circulation, where making surface preservation one of the most important factors when determining a coin's long-term desirability. As the investigation deepens, condition begins to overshadow mintage. Professional grading services evaluate each authenticated coin according to the Sheldon scale, assigning numerical grades from 1 through 70, while carefully considering strike quality, original mint luster, surface preservation, eye appeal, and the absence of distracting marks. Most surviving 1981 Roosevelt dimes fall into circulated grades or lower mint state levels, where collector premiums are generally modest. The true challenge lies in locating coins certified at the highest mint state grades with brilliant original surfaces and exceptionally sharp strikes. Registry set collectors compete intensely for these scarce top population examples because only a limited number have survived in elite condition. Depending on certification, originality, and current market demand, a certified mint state 68 circulation strike may realize around $1,620, while especially attractive top-grade examples have achieved approximately $3,780 in verified public sales. Those figures apply only to authenticated coins meeting exceptionally demanding standards and should never be interpreted as typical values for ordinary circulation pieces. No serious investigation would be complete without examining the possibility of mint errors and important varieties, although caution is essential because misinformation spreads quickly. Genuine mint errors occur during the production process rather than after a coin leaves the mint. Collectors carefully inspect 1981 Roosevelt dimes for authenticated off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, strike-through errors, and other documented production anomalies. True doubled dies are distinctly different from machine doubling, which usually adds little or no collector premium. Because many damaged coins are mistakenly advertised as rare errors, authentication through respected grading and attribution services remains indispensable. Verified dramatic errors can generate substantial collector competition, with some authenticated examples selling for well above $3,900 depending on the nature of the error, its rarity, certification, condition, and overall visual appeal. These results belong only to documented mint-made errors rather than altered or damaged coins found in circulation. Authentication extends far beyond checking the date and mint mark. Specialists verify the coin's weight, diameter, metallic composition, edge construction, and microscopic design details before confirming authenticity. A genuine clad 1981 Roosevelt dime should display its characteristic copper core along the reeded edge, while incorrect color, unusual porosity, casting bubbles, soft lettering, or inaccurate dimensions may indicate a counterfeit or altered specimen. Cleaning presents another major concern. Even gentle polishing can permanently remove the delicate original mint luster that advanced collectors value so highly, leaving hairline scratches that professional graders identify immediately. Instead of attempting to improve appearance, knowledgeable collectors preserve important coins exactly as they are, storing them in archival quality holders, inert plastic capsules, acid-free flips, or professionally encapsulated grading service holders. Proper storage protects the surfaces from moisture, fingerprints, environmental contaminants, and abrasion, preserving the originality that often distinguishes premium examples from otherwise similar coins. Stepping back from the magnifying glass, the true significance of the 1981 Roosevelt dime becomes much clearer. Its appeal does not come from being universally rare, but from the challenge of finding examples that combine exceptional strike quality, pristine preservation, original mint luster, strong eye appeal, and reliable authentication after decades of circulation and storage. Every coin invites careful observation rather than quick assumptions. Experienced collectors begin with the date and mint mark, then methodically evaluate strike sharpness, lettering, surface quality, color, luster, and any evidence of genuine mint-made anomalies before considering market value. Auction history consistently shows that outstanding prices are reserved for authenticated high-grade coins or legitimate error pieces whose rarity has been confirmed through professional certification. The careful, evidence-based approach is what transforms the investigation of an ordinary-looking 1981 Roosevelt dime into a rewarding study of craftsmanship, preservation, and modern American numismatic history, proving that the smallest details often tell the most compelling stories. Last coin. The 1991 Philadelphia Roosevelt dime is the kind of coin that almost everyone has seen, yet very few people have ever truly examined. It passed through grocery stores, vending machines, cash registers, and countless pockets without attracting attention, quietly blending into everyday life as one of America's most familiar denominations. That ordinary appearance is precisely what makes it so intriguing to serious collectors. Hidden beneath its common design are subtle characteristics that determine whether one example remains nothing more than pocket change, while another becomes an object of intense competition among advanced numismatists. Those differences cannot be identified with a quick glance. They require careful observation, technical knowledge, and an understanding of how the coin was produced, preserved, and authenticated. As this investigation unfolds, we'll gradually uncover the features that specialists study first, explore why certain certified examples have become highly desirable, and later examine the documented market results that demonstrate how dramatically quality can influence collector value. To understand the 1991 P. Roosevelt dime, it helps to step back into the United States of the early 1990s. The country was experiencing a mild recession while adapting to the end of the Cold War, and despite changing economic conditions, billions of coins continued flowing through commerce every year to support daily transactions. The Roosevelt dime remained one of the busiest denominations in circulation, serving millions of Americans every day. The Philadelphia Mint struck the 1991 circulation issue with the familiar P mint mark appearing on the obverse, a feature that had become standard after mint marks were added to Philadelphia dimes beginning in 1980. Production exceeded 500 million circulation pieces, making the date widely available, but that enormous mintage should never be confused with unlimited availability in exceptional condition. Each coin was struck on a copper core bonded between outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel, resulting in a total weight of approximately 2.27 grams. The diameter measured 17.91 millimeters, and the sharply reeded edge continued a tradition dating back centuries, helping discourage clipping while preserving the familiar appearance expected by the public. Examining the design reveals why the Roosevelt dime has remained essentially unchanged for decades. Chief engraver John R. Sinek created the original portrait introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt following his death. Roosevelt's leadership during the Great Depression, World War II, and his enduring connection to the March of Dimes campaign against polio made him a natural choice for the denomination. On the obverse, his left-facing portrait is framed by Liberty, in God We Trust, the date, and the small Philadelphia mint mark. Turning the coin over, the reverse displays a central torch representing liberty, flanked by an olive branch symbolizing peace and an oak branch representing strength and endurance. The inscriptions United States of America, 1 dime, and EPLUBUSUNUM complete a design that appears simple until viewed through the eyes of an experienced collector. Specialists closely inspect the sharpness of Roosevelt's hair, the definition within the torch bands, the spacing of the lettering, and the completeness of every tiny detail, because these subtle characteristics often distinguish an average strike from an exceptional one. The production process explains why even coins struck on the same day can appear remarkably different decades later. Blank clad planchets first received raised rims before entering high-speed coining presses that impressed the design under tremendous pressure. Fresh dies produced brilliant luster, crisp lettering, and sharply defined design elements, while dies nearing the end of their service life gradually lost the ability to reproduce every fine detail with equal precision. Once struck, thousands of newly minted dimes were stored together in heavy bags where constant contact left countless tiny abrasions before the coins ever entered circulation. Those marks became part of the coin's history from the very beginning. As years passed, additional handling softened high points, reduced mint luster, and introduced scratches or discoloration. Because of this natural progression, collectors today spend considerable time evaluating originality rather than perfection alone. A coin retaining untouched surfaces and vibrant cartwheel luster often attracts far more interest than one that has been cleaned or artificially brightened despite appearing shinier at first glance. As attention shifts from history to the collector market, condition quickly becomes the defining factor. Professional grading services evaluate every authenticated coin according to the Sheldon numerical grading scale, carefully balancing strike quality, preservation, luster, contact marks, eye appeal, and originality. Although millions of 1991 P dimes survive, most exist in circulated grades or ordinary mint state condition. The population declines dramatically among coins certified at the highest mint state levels because preserving flawless surfaces through decades of storage is extraordinarily difficult. Registry-set collectors compete for these finest-known examples, creating significant demand whenever elite pieces become available. Depending on certification, originality, and current market conditions, a certified mint state 68 example with exceptional eye appeal may realize approximately $1,730. Verified auction records also show that especially desirable top population specimens have achieved around $3,580 when multiple advanced collectors competed for coins displaying superior strike quality, vibrant original luster, and virtually pristine surfaces. Those prices apply only to authenticated high-grade examples rather than ordinary circulation pieces carrying the same date and mint mark. No serious evaluation would be complete without considering mint errors and recognized die varieties, although careful documentation remains essential. Collectors occasionally encounter genuine off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, strike-through errors, and other manufacturing anomalies that originated inside the mint. These should never be confused with post-mint damage caused by circulation, machinery, or intentional alteration. Likewise, true double dies differ significantly from machine doubling, which is relatively common and generally adds little collector value. Reliable references and professional attribution services remain the standard for confirming legitimate varieties because unsupported online claims frequently exaggerate the rarity of ordinary coins. When a dramatic production error is properly authenticated and certified, market demand can become intense. Exceptional documented error examples have exceeded $3,900 in public sales, depending on the nature of the error, preservation, rarity, and collector competition. Such results illustrate how unusual production mistakes can transform an otherwise common issue into an important numismatic discovery, without implying that every 1991 P dime possesses extraordinary value. Authentication itself has become increasingly sophisticated as counterfeit technology continues to improve. Experienced numismatists begin with basic physical specifications, confirming the coin's weight, diameter, thickness, metallic composition, and edge construction before moving to microscopic analysis of lettering, portrait details, and surface texture. A genuine clad Roosevelt dime displays the characteristic copper core visible along the reeded edge, while porous surfaces, incorrect color, soft details, casting bubbles, or inaccurate dimensions may indicate a counterfeit or altered piece. Cleaning remains another significant concern because polishing permanently removes the delicate original mint luster that collectors prize. Even lightly cleaned coins often receive reduced market acceptance despite otherwise attractive appearances. Proper preservation, therefore, becomes an important part of long-term collectability. Archival quality holders, inert plastic capsules, acid-free storage materials, and professionally encapsulated grading service holders protect important coins from fingerprints, humidity, airborne contaminants, and unnecessary abrasion, allowing future collectors to appreciate the same original surfaces that left the mint more than 3 decades ago. Viewed through the lens of history, craftsmanship, and collector psychology, the 1991 P Roosevelt dime becomes far more than a simple 10-cent coin. It represents a period when American coinage emphasized consistency, efficiency, and durability, while quietly producing occasional masterpieces of preservation that today stand out from hundreds of millions of ordinary survivors. Its enduring appeal comes not from universal rarity, but from the challenge of identifying exceptional examples whose originality, strike quality, eye appeal, certification, and long-term preservation elevate them above the rest. Every authenticated high-grade coin tells a different story, reminding collectors that true value is determined through evidence rather than assumptions, careful examination rather than appearance alone, and documented market demand rather than speculation. The smallest details often preserve the greatest history, and sometimes the next remarkable discovery begins with nothing more than taking a closer look at an ordinary coin.